Welcome to Touchline. I'm your host, Anthony Totera, and today we're coming to you from the Toronto Soccer Association head office. And here today with me is Wayne Butler of the York Jets, but more importantly, the president of the TSA. Wayne, thanks for inviting me here. And who did you bring with you today, Wayne?
Well, thanks for coming, Anthony. And I've got a couple of our bigger clubs represented here today. President of the Toronto High Park Football Club, Mr. William Buckingham, and treasurer of the North Toronto Soccer Club, and also the vice president here at the TSA, Dave Brown.
Now, Wayne, let's talk a little bit about your club very quickly. It's been in existence many, many years. Where you're situated, very quickly, how many kids are in your club?
Our head office is basically at Eglinton and Black Creek, and we're approximately 700 kids.
Now, Dave, you come from North Toronto. Tell us a little bit about your club. When was it founded? How many kids, more or less, are in your club right now?
Our club was founded in '83, community-based. Eglinton Park's our home area. We've grown the club over the years to in excess of 4,000 registrations, and we trimmed that back in the winter quite a bit, but it's been very successful and still growing.
Quite a bit, 4,000. Now, William Buckingham, you come from Toronto High Park, but a little bit of a transformation in that name. Talk about that and talk about how many kids you have in your club as well.
Well, Toronto High Park's this is our third season, going into our third season, but we are an amalgamation of two previous clubs, West End United Soccer Club and the Swansea Soccer Association. Started off with about 2,400 kids when we merged, now we're up to around 3,700. Very, very quick growth, especially in the lower age groups, the under 6 and below. Very quick growth. And we're trying to do more.
Where are you situated exactly, William?
Our geography is essentially from Lake Ontario up to about St. Clair, Eglinton, out to the Kingsway, over to, let's say, Lansdowne. But because of the development programs we're bringing in, the kind of culture we're trying to develop in the club, we're finding kids from the inner city, as far north as north of the 401, out from Etobicoke, the Islington area. And I mean, I've even heard stories of kids coming in for some of our more senior teams all the way from Oshawa.
Wow, that's great to hear. Now, William, let's talk about today the biggest four-letter word in Ontario is LTPD, long-term player development. I want to get your thoughts as a president of a club, and a good-sized club at that. Tell us how you feel about long-term player development. Are you for it? And if you're for it, great. But if you're still not 100% on board, why not?
Well, it's something we've bought into. I mean, we have a very, well, as I said earlier, a large growth in our under 6 program. We recognize that developing the fundamentals at that age are fundamental. That's the bedrock. If you don't have that early on, you're not going to have anything later on. We believe in teaching properly. We're committed to things like moving to 5v5 for the under 8s and under 7s, more touches on the ball, more involvement in the game, and so on. There's a couple of questions about whether, kids are not going to want to count score and whether the parents are going to forget the score and things like that. But, we've already implemented LTPD principles in our house leagues. We're committed and working hard to support the TSA in the lower levels of the competitive age groups, and we're going to see what happens. We are all about development right now.
Well said. Now, Dave, you come from a bigger club, and you've got a technical director as well, so he's got a lot on his plate to really implement this. Is your club fully on board? And if they are, great. If not, tell us what you might want to see more of.
Yeah, we are fully on board, and our technical director, John Hyland, he's bringing this forward. He's got the experience and the exposure from Australia, New Zealand, Scotland, and the UK, what's happening there. And I think if we look at our past and what we've achieved, I think it is time for the change, and I think we're doing the right thing. The club itself, even before, was no scores, no standings in the younger age groups. We've introduced Learn to Play at 4s and 5s. It's been very well received in the area, and we brought in, let's call them professional trainers for this, and so we're working that right through the club.
That's well said, and that's what a big club like yours needs to do. Wayne, you come from a smaller club, but obviously even the smaller clubs like yours need to be on board because, again, I said this to you, Wayne, and I'll say it to Dave, and I'll say it to William. I coached many years with my two boys, and I've got a basement full of trophies. I'd rather see one of my two boys possibly represent their province and playing for Ontario, maybe Team Canada one day, or a scholarship, and not all those trophies. It's about development. Am I right?
There's no doubt that it's about development. Even though we are a smaller club, 700 kids strong, we also have now for several years in our house league program not had standings. It's something that we've seen is going to happen, and it's trying to take out not so much the competitive edge, but trying to enforce things that are much more important, such as development, and such as touches of the ball, and such as learning the basics, the grassroots, the fundamentals. We've even done it with our head coach in our club, who is a former York Jet player who's now 26, 27 years old. He went on a full scholarship to Syracuse University, and he's back now in our organization, and he's running our I have to watch the word academy, but he's watching it. He's running it anyways, which is basically our 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old kids, which we're putting this year into the festival program that the TSA is running as part of the LTPD. So we wanted to bring in people that are younger than me and probably a little bit more willing to accept the change that's going to take place because, as you all know, Tony, change is something that nobody likes.
But the parents won't like it, Wayne. And the parents are the ones that are screaming, William and Dave, on the sidelines for their son or daughter to get that goal and to win that game at all costs. And let's be honest, gentlemen, some of the coaches want to win at all costs as well. This is a problem. It
is a problem, and I think that's one of the reasons why that through Alex Chiet at OSA, we're having to use this year and maybe even more than 1 year as an educational type of a setup, whereas it's going to take that time to educate the parents. It's going to take that time to educate some of your coaches, certainly the most competitive ones, that it's not about winning. And it is about developing, and it's the only way we're going to get better on the national level. And if it requires that education process, so be it.
Well said, Wade. Well said. I agree with that 100%. William, I'm going to go back to you. I want to talk about, in the last number of years, the quality, the development of the player in the TSA, in this district. Unfortunately, people have talked to me from many other districts and many other clubs. They haven't seen the quality of that player, either boy or girl, in this district. Is it getting better? And if not, what needs to happen?
I think it is getting better. I think there's still more has to happen. I know we've had some success. Our U15 girls program is fantastic. They went to the quarters of the semis last year. Just been playing some great football, beautiful football to watch. I know that there have been individual players that have succeeded. There's a boy I coached when he was U10 in house league. He's U16 now. He's off with Dinamo Zagreb on a development contract.
Well done.
You know, I mean, the kids are there. The question is, how do we bring them together? How do we develop them and more? LTPD is going to be part of that. But you know, we work quite hard on trying to plan our winter development program and our outdoor play, and we just don't have enough fields. We don't have enough practice facilities. We don't have enough hours to use the fields. We're just strangled there. You know, hopefully we can develop some facilities. Certainly won't be parks. There are just no more parks. There's no more. I mean, where we live, there are no more green spaces to put goalposts up on. We've got to get creative there. Our club, when we were two separate clubs, Swansea and West End, we didn't have technical directors. We now have a technical director. He has now hired a series of part-time coaches as his staff. We also engage an outside company to come in and train. My daughter is a U10G rep, and she has been working with an outside organization for 2 winters now. And you can see the improvement in those girls. So there are things we can do at the club level. I'm still learning about the district, but at the club level, we're doing a lot to push that development and give these kids every chance they get to improve.
And you know what I love about that, William? You're actually getting people from the outside. You're paying them, some of them, I'm sure, and they're professionals. They're ex-professionals. They know what they're doing. You're putting more tracksuits out there to help the kids, and less people pushing paper, which I really want, is more people out there developing the kids. Now, Dave, I know your club has some real strong boys teams. I know for a fact the 98 boys team, the age group that my son plays in, one young coach has done a marvelous job with that team specifically, and I'm sure you have other stories. But your club, I know for a fact they have some strong boys teams. What happens, Dave, once they get out there and compete against some of the other districts? You notice that there is a dip. Are we starting to correct that in this district?
Yeah, I think we are, at least at our club. I think we're going in the right direction. We have two teams that are going to the OYSL this year. The team you just mentioned, the 98s, and then what would they be? My math isn't too good, but I think they're going to be the under 16s. That's with Herman Kinge. And they've done very well, and it's been intense training, and it's led by two very strong coaches. And I think that's kind of the proof, that's why the success is happening.
Absolutely. Now, Dave, something that William touched upon that we need to talk about, it's the quality of the playing field out there. And the quantity, there isn't enough fields. And the quality, to be honest, many a time, and the President, you can speak on this as well, is in the TSA, in this district, many times when other teams come to play from other districts, whether in CSL, OYSL, whatever the case might be, they find the fields in this district very poor. They're not maintained. When you go up to the York Region District, the other districts, they're almost like carpet looking. And that's not the fault of the clubs, but are you doing enough, Dave, to go after the counselors, to have a relationship with the mayor and say, look, we're taxpayers. Are you listening to us? We need better facilities.
Well, the fields are interesting, and I guess our view of soccer from television is that the fields that, FA Cup teams and stuff play on, UEFA, everything that they play on, I mean, those are the very best quality. We're not going to get to that level in the city. I've been to countries and I've seen fields, and they're just dirt. There is no grass to speak of. Okay, so you have to keep that in perspective too. Is we're very fortunate in the fields we do have. Yes, we'd like to fix the holes in them, and the access to the field is probably more important than the quality. The quality we can work on, and we do. North Toronto, we work with the city to try and do that. Over the years, we've had partnerships. We've shared in those partnerships, and we will do that this year. In terms of fields, we entered into a contract with School Board for Northern Collegiate, and we've shared the costs in their turf field along with Section 35 money through the developers in the city. So we've done that. We look to getting time in our area because North Toronto, we're in the central area. Mm-hmm. And North Toronto Collegiate, there's the situation where the school board has worked with the city putting in a field along with a major development, and we'll be looking to getting time there. These are both turf fields. Yes, grass would be great, but for the amount of use we have to get out of the field, turf seems to be the only one of the answers. And we have a number of private schools around in our area, and we pay accordingly, and we utilize those fields too. And we will cost per child to play in our club is probably higher than anywhere in the city because of all of the turf fields that we have to use.
But you're giving quality, you're giving something, and that's why parents have to pay a little more.
Unfortunately, yes, but that's fine.
It is fine. Now, Wayne, you've got a nice facility going up, and if I'm not mistaken, it's almost done. And this has been in the works for a while. Talk about this nice field that they're putting right by your clubhouse there.
Well, it's having some difficulties right now. We used it last year for the first time, but they've had to do some work as soon as the season was over. There was a drainage problem with the field because it was an old baseball diamond. And when they put the topsoil or whatever they were supposed to put on that field, I guess they didn't realize that below the baseball diamond there was clay. And now when it was raining, the water just sat on top of the field. So we used to get 8 inches of water after 3 inches of rain. It would just pile up. So they've done some work on it since the fall. We're waiting for the new sod to get laid on it, but we've been told that it'll be ready for June 1. It's an enclosed stadium type of setup. We're very happy with it, the way the way that it looks, and the players love playing on it because it is enclosed with, the European style benches with the canopy, and it
great
makes
for the
them feel
kids.
like
Yes.
they're playing in a stadium.
And that's what it's all about. But
Yeah.
let's be honest, you put a lot of hours, you and your club and people there, to go knocking on the doors of the counselors and different people to help you get that field.
We did, and we'd probably like to put in a few more hours because in our clubhouse we still have rakes and wheelbarrows, so we're still having to do all the maintenance on it. So they're cutting the grass, but we're filling in the holes.
Don't expect me to come and help you with the rake and barrels.
If we even if we negotiate a decent rate.
Very good. Now listen, Wayne, the next one's going to be a little bit hard to swallow, but you've known me for years. I call it the way I see it. I'm very blunt and honest, and then I'll get to
That's
Dave
fine, yep.
and William. Out there in the soccer community in Ontario, specifically in the GTA, the TSA clubs, unfortunately, have not won an Ontario Cup in many, many years. And if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong and you could correct me, the last team to do it was your team back in 2001, if I'm not mistaken. And this, to me, is unacceptable with the amount of teams, clubs you have in your district. And I've noticed there's been some good quality in the last number of years. When, as a president, do you really need to assess and look at the big picture and say, why are we not getting to even an Ontario Cup final? Why are we not winning one?
Well, I can easily cop out of that by saying I've only been president since December, so I can't go too far back. But
you've been here long enough.
I've been here long enough. I think there are some reasons for it, Anthony, to be honest with you. I think one of the reasons for it is we have perhaps too many youth clubs in our district, if there's such a thing as that. We have like 17 youth clubs in our district, which is more than York Region, and yet probably 10 or 12,000 players less than York Region. So I think that indicates that there's a bit of a watered-down project and a watered-down situation simply because the better players are not concentrated in one area. They're spread from Etobicoke to the lee side border of our district, and some big clubs. We have many big clubs, and we have many small clubs. And the other issue, I think, is that our small clubs, many of our small clubs, are ethnic based. And
Glad you brought that up. I wasn't going to bring it up, but you brought it up. Go ahead.
The fact that they're ethnic based means that sometimes those players of that particular background are going to be selected and playing on those teams, as opposed to necessarily the best players that could be playing on those teams. Now, we can go back to ethnic soccer since the days of Toronto Italia, Homer, Toronto Croatia, Serbian White Eagles, and the old National Soccer League. It was probably the best soccer that maybe our province has ever seen.
I agree with that. Yep.
So I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. Au contraire. But it does cause a bit of a watered-down effect throughout the
So
district.
then I'll throw it back to you as president, and then you can pass it on to Dave. What are you going to do in the short term that you've been here now as the president to try and rectify this problem starting this season with your clubs entering Ontario Cups to help them maybe really focus in on how important it is for some of your clubs to get to that pinnacle?
Well, I think a lot of it right now is on hold, and I'll tell you why, without sounding like I'm backing away from the question. Until the end of April, at the OSA Soccer Conference, many of us are not going to know really what the new quote-unquote gold standard of clubs is going to be. I sit on the OSA board, and I've been asking for this information, and we understand that it's coming forward at the end of April. We will have a better idea at that point what's going to happen. Many of the clubs in our district that are of ethnic origin or are smaller clubs, including the York Jets, my club of 700 kids, we really don't know what our status is going to be and whether or not we're going to be in a position to be able to have teams playing in multi-jurisdictional leagues in the future. And until that comes through, I think it's hard to decide because it could be a situation where the mergers of clubs like West End United and Swansea becomes the norm as opposed to the exception. Yeah. And if that's the case, then we have many things to do in our district to get in line with Ontario Cup championships.
Absolutely. Now, Dave, your club is quite a big club in numbers. It's one of the biggest in Ontario. Let's be honest about that. And again, as I've said, I don't know too much about the girls' programs in your club, but I know the boys' programs, in my opinion. Your club has come a long, long way from where they were. And in my opinion, your club with some of the boys' teams can compete now with some of the bigger boys. And I think that is, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, you've got the people in place, the soccer minds in place to teach, develop the kids. But again, why isn't North Toronto up there in an Ontario Cup final or winning one?
Well, I think, since we're turning the corner on that, so I think you have to give that a year or two to, show that it works. The fact that we do now have 2 OISL teams, as I said earlier, that is probably some of the evidence of that, and continuing to work and develop with those players and focusing on them that are capable of doing that. That's one of our objectives, and that's going to take some time. We heard an interesting discussion from an outsider. I guess it was just last evening at the TSA level, in terms of the quality is that it hasn't manifested itself like it probably should have by now. We're still looking at imported players that go up at the TFC level, and you say they're still not home based, right? So
that's a good point.
So the evidence is it hasn't happened anywhere yet, and it won't. I mean, the objective is if you're a good player, where do you want to be playing? And it's not here yet. So that's going to take years to happen.
That's a good point. William, you're a smaller club, but not that small again. When you sit down maybe at the beginning of years with some of your competitive coaches, boys and girls, their minds are obviously in developing this team, developing that young man, that young girl, but do they ever bring up, the final goal is where they want to be, is maybe winning an Ontario Cup?
Well, I happen to be one of those competitive coaches, so it's one of the hats I wear. I really have too many hats sometimes. And I run the program for our 2002 girls, and we started off as an opportunity for girls that had a higher acumen at football to get out and be a little more competitive and develop, and give them a program. Frankly, were we thinking competition? We were thinking just as much about making sure they were dedicated to a sport. They had a group of friends that they could work with for years and years. They wouldn't be in the malls when they're 14 or 15.
Well
now,
said.
Having said that, yes. I can look at my colleague over here and say, our girls are probably getting a little bit tired of being beaten by North Toronto all the time, and a couple of other clubs besides. So they're getting more competitive, and little by little, they will get more competitive because of the development programs that we've started with our technical director, with the groups we're bringing in, when the other development. We're attracting better girls to the club from other clubs, sadly, because of the product we're creating. Not because we're winning, but because of the club culture and because of what we're doing in terms of development. Slowly but surely, we're seeing those girls get better. We're seeing them get more competitive, not because of the new girls in the club, but because everybody's getting better.
Sure.
And it's those things, I think, that are going to push us over the top. We're not going to, we're U10. We don't have to worry about OYSL quite yet. But, every now and then we start to wonder whether we're going to be driving to Barrie at 4 o'clock in the afternoon for a 6:30 game one day. I believe
but
that...
is that, sorry to interrupt, William, but will that be a problem? Because just the way you said that, if this was a hockey atmosphere right now and hockey parents and presidents talking about it, they would stop in the middle of the day of their job if they had to go from here to Thunder Bay to play a league game. Why isn't it, William, that we can't get that mentality? I know that a lot of the European mentality in this city in South America have that mentality. They'll drive their son or daughter from here to Timbuktu to get them to the game. Why isn't that mentality at your club?
I think it'll be there. I think there's core groups of players in every club that are going to buy into a project like that have players, their children are going to want to do that. They're going to want to make that investment in time and frankly money.
Sure.
And effort. And those teams and those clubs will emerge, whether they're in our club or another club. That's fine. It's great that we have a framework now, and we'll get better, I hope, where that level of competition can happen. All I can say is, from our club's point of view, what we're trying to do is build the foundation so that our girls and boys can develop and compete at that kind of level. And we're seeing it. I mean, some of our under 10 team, a couple of our, one of our under 10 boys teams is phenomenal. Our under 10 girls, a little bit woeful to start. They're coming along. Patience, it'll come.
Absolutely, and I agree with that. Well said. Wayne, let's talk about the word that many people don't want to talk about when it comes to this district and many districts is academies. And we need to talk about academies because eventually, if it's not already going to happen in the next few months or so, they're going to be involved in the Ontario Soccer Association family. And is your club, York Jets, Dave's club, Williams club, ready, up for the challenge to go up against some of these academy clubs and teams to play with them and see what they are really made of and see what you're made of? Because again, your club, Dave's club, Williams club, their son or daughter will be paying one fee for the summer or for indoor. That academy is going year-round. They're paying some heavy-duty dollars, but they're also getting some heavy-duty training, some top-notch facilities. What is your club, Dave's club, and Williams club thoughts on academies?
Well, I think you get what you pay for most of the time.
Well said.
I think that if we were in a position at the club level that we could charge what some of the academies are allegedly charging out there, then you would be able to be in a position to hire more professional coaches, more professional trainers, more professional staff in general. You would also be able to increase the viability of your facilities, certainly the quality of them. Certainly you'd be able to do things when it comes to changing room facilities and stuff that most of our fields don't have anything close to. Are we ready to play against them? Absolutely. I have no doubt about that because teams that I've been coaching for the last 3 or 4 years have played many exhibition matches with academies. You've seen them. We've been more successful than we have been beaten. We've won games against 2 or 3 different academies of players that are in our own age group. And we're not a big club, so the bigger clubs, I'm sure, would be able to compete with them as well. Bigger clubs like both of these gentlemen's clubs beside me. So I'm not worried about the competition aspect. But I mean, if you could ever get the parents in our smaller clubs to consider the options of who you could bring in with that kind of funding, it would be better for the game across the board.
I agree with that. I agree with you.
And I think academies are something that should be brought into the OSA. They should be accepted, and they should be allowed to play in the same leagues that clubs play in, I believe, because after all, they're the kids of our game. It doesn't really matter how much they pay. That's what mom and dad can afford.
That's right.
But it's the fact that they're playing under the umbrella of the Ontario Soccer Association, and they're there to make our national teams better in the long run.
Bravo.
And it really is political, only political, that you have these divisions between academy leagues and CSLs and OISLs.
And who is suffering?
The players.
The kids.
The players.
Yeah.
And it shows. It shows at our national level. I mean, anybody who saw the Canada-Cuba CONCACAF qualifying the other night. I had to bring it up because, athletically, we'll compete with anybody in the world. But just that lack of finish, that lack of soccer intuition is so obvious at that level. It's the difference between playing Mexico and playing Honduras in the semifinal.
Yeah, but we'll see what we're made of, and hopefully we wish the Canadian boys all the best.
Listen, beating the Americans in the United States was fantastic, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Proud to be Canadian.
Absolutely.
Dave, you come from a club, again, in numbers. And when I bring up the word academies, I think of your club because your club itself should be able to give, let's say, the under 14 or under 15 boy or girl practices of 5-6 times a week if they so please. Because if that's what the parents want on a certain team or club, why isn't it that they can't have that? Because what I'm finding, what I'm seeing with many kids and parents that go to academies is they don't want to be training once or twice a week in a game, 3. They want to be going 3 or 4 times a week training, plus a game, plus some off-field training. I'm the worst at myself at doing that with my own boy. How does your club talk about that?
I don't think we've seen that demand in our area just yet. we will train twice, 3 times a week in the off season. As a matter of fact, interestingly enough, a year ago in the indoor season, we probably had 20 plus teams out playing in indoor leagues, and sometimes we had trouble fielding teams. We didn't get practices. There was supposed to be a commitment to development through the winter in addition to the weekly play, and it didn't happen. So we made a dramatic change, and we said only those that were committed to playing in a league, fine, and developing through the winter as well, they could do it. And we only had 4 teams that actually played in winter leagues this year. Everyone else, we focused on development.
I love to hear that. That's fantastic.
And
love to hear that.
The numbers went up in that, and we still ran indoor. If they wanted to play indoor house leagues and things, recreational leagues is the term now. They did that too. We did surveys. We found girls would be much more interested, and we focused on girls over the years, and we've provided separate leagues for them. They play together, and it's worked out much better. And they're competitive girls. They've been okay. They're getting there.
What I get from you, Dave, what I get from you and your club, Dave, is you're listening to parents. You're listening to what they want. You are having these surveys out there. It's almost a family sort of a club, and that's what I love to hear, Dave. It's not my way or the highway. Because it's about the kids, and we're trying to accommodate, William, moms and dads that have busy lives. They're working. They're trying to provide. And something that Wayne brought up that I have marked down here, and it's very key and important, that Dave, you quickly talk about it, and Wayne yourself, is when Team Canada is playing, coming up in the next important qualifying for World Cup 2014, I know that it is so vital that each and every club, the night that Canada plays at home, specifically at home, that there should be no games at all played in any club, house league or rep. And let me finish very quickly and you can talk. And why I say that is little Johnny, Dave, little Susie, Wayne, should be in front of that TV if they can't attend the game at BMO and watching and cheering on Team Canada. Because again, if it was the Olympics and Team Canada was playing in hockey, everyone and the whole country would stop to do that. Why can't we do that here for Team Canada?
Well, speaking as somebody who lives about a 20-minute walk north of BMO Field, I can tell you I'll be there.
Love to hear that.
And I can tell you that last year, the opening game of the Women's World Cup, we rented one of the local cinemas, the Review Cinema on Roncesvalles, and we had about 100 girls in their soccer uniforms watching Christine Sinclair's nose get broken. It was just a great day. They were all in their uniforms. And for those of you that know our club was wearing last year the Umbro chevron, which was the national team uniform. We really feel tied to the national team. We really do want to promote that. I haven't looked at the schedule yet, so I don't know if we're playing or not. But no, it is definitely something. It's definitely something we feel good about. We definitely want to create that tie. I know I've got one girl who went to school and wrote an essay about why she wants to be like Christine Sinclair.
Love that.
You know, they need those role models,
yes.
And we definitely see that happening. It's not for everyone. I mean, not all of them are going to buy into it, but for some of them, those are their heroes.
But as a club president, very quickly, William, I've got to ask you again. If Team Canada, off the top of my head, it's June 2, I can't remember the exact dates, but they're in June. Will you mandate in your club that there's no house league games, there's no rep games? Because I know for a fact that our president, Ron Smill of the OSA, did mandate that there would be no games when Team Canada plays. Because again, in any other country, Dave and Wayne, in the world, when their country is playing, even a friendly, they don't play.
Well, I remember the Olympic hockey game, and I remember walking out onto the street, and you couldn't hear the traffic. Yep. There was no traffic. It'd be nice to get there. I don't know what the TSA is doing in terms of league games that night. It's something we'll look at. It's something we'll definitely look at. I mean, because we are so close to BMO Field, I, for one, am a 20-minute walk away. We have sold a lot of tickets there in the past. We've joined the parades into the stadium and such. We definitely buy into it. I haven't, frankly, mea culpa, we haven't looked at the scheduling of that
That's
yet,
all right. You're going to look after this interview's done.
Okay,
Well
Anthony,
said.
I'll look at it.
Dave, I get goosebumps listening to him tell me some of the stories of the young girls there with Christine Sinclair. Goosebumps listening. And it makes me so happy to hear these things because I'm a proud Canadian. I'm sure you are. All of us here are proud Canadians first and foremost. Is your club going to step up to the plate and mandate, or if it can't be done for all the games, at least for 2 or 3 of the games, that they watch Team Canada?
Well, it's not a one-voice club, so I'll have to defer to everyone else on the board that makes these decisions. And yeah, I'm sure that'll be one of the questions. I don't know that they've made the schedules up yet, but we can certainly address that.
Well said. Wayne, I know that you would absolutely agree with what I said because you and I, our hearts are for Team Canada. And it's not just for Team Canada, but it's for the youngsters to get that culture ingrained in their head that it's not just about hockey, that there is another sport that people love in this city and in this province. And I hate to say it to all the hockey parents, I was one myself. This city, this province, this country is changing where all sorts are still coming in here from countries of soccer-loving nations.
Well, soccer is more than a sport, as you know. Soccer, if anybody out there has been to Europe or from Europe or South America or from South America, you know that soccer is a culture. It's a passion, it's a culture, it's much more than a sport. It's a way of life. And I hope that I'm alive when I can see that change here in Canada. I've been involved with soccer for too long. And if I'm still alive when that comes around, I'll be very happy. But it is a major process.
But it's changing, Wayne. It's changing.
Oh, it's no doubt it's changing.
And
it's changed a lot in the last 10, 15 years.
It really has. And before we close it out, and we're wrapping up here, Dave and William, I want to get your thoughts, Dave, first, and your thoughts, William. This is a show we've been doing on the Ontario Soccer Association website for almost 3 years now. And what I love doing at the end of these things is they have a board, and many of them, and including the president, Ron Smale, and now Lisa Beattie, love to hear input from people like yourself, from William, and from Wayne. I'd like to get a negative and a positive from you of what you've seen from the OSA that they've done good in the last little while, but also something you'd like to see more that they can do better at.
I think on a positive note is that I'm seeing change. I'm seeing change in direction. I see it coming from the top, and I see it working its way down. We have, at the TSA and at the club, we do have a working relationship with the OSA. And if there are problems, and yes, there are problems, that's probably my negative, but we're working to fix those problems because, I think that will achieve more in the end than.
Are they listening more now, Dave, than before? Do you find a little bit more, or
yes.
is it getting the same?
No, I think they're listening more. Yeah.
Now, William, you're new at this. As you were telling me, you've only been a president for a number of months here, like Wayne, president of the TSA. So what would you say as someone that, as you said to me, someone with fresh ideas, a fresh outlook, what would you say that you'd like to see more of the OSA do, but what have you also liked as well?
Well, you mentioned Lisa Beattie and Ron Smale. I was on the phone with Ron yesterday and Lisa on my way up here. Hi, guys. Just a good word for them. Very, very approachable, easy to work with. It's unfortunate that we do have to work with them right now. We're trying to deal with some league rules that just frankly aren't in the best interests of the kids. There's a lot of bureaucracy that's been created over the years, and I really think there's some good people in place, and hopefully we can clear some of that out of the way.
Absolutely.
Because ultimately this is about the kids. This isn't about
right.
bureaucracies and so on. What I'd like to see, we need to clean up a lot of the infrastructure and focus. Corporate sponsorship money would be great.
That's a great point.
Why can't we fund more than we do today? Why do we have to, we have to beg, borrow, and steal sometimes to fund some of our programs. I'm sure there's a lot of other sports that don't have those issues. That would be great. Facilities. Facilities.
facilities.
And after that, I think I'd like more facilities.
Well said, William. Well said. We'll close it off with the president of the TSA, Wayne Butler. You were telling me about a couple big events that your district is having coming up. Talk a little bit about those events that are coming up and give the website out so people can get more info as well.
Well, you can go to our website, which is tsaleagues.com. That'll tell you everything about our leagues and some of the upcoming events. Certainly, it's been a busy stretch here for me. We're in the process of hiring a new executive director for the association. We're going to be our British Consols Cup competition is back this year. It left the association for 3 or 4 years. Am I right, Dave? And we're bringing it back this year. We're trying to run it in a World Cup format for 32 men's teams. It's an open competition with $9,000 or $10,000 worth of prize money on the line. So applications can easily be picked up here at our office, or in most publications. You go on the OSA's website as well.
When is that being held?
It's going to be starting up in June, but it goes right through the summer. It's similar to a World Cup. 32 teams we're hoping for. And it's a crossover type of thing, similar to World Cup groups and so on and so forth. I hope my men's team's not in the group of death, but we're going to have some fun with it.
Shameless plug for that.
A shameless plug. We also are going to be involved with a major project as far as life in general is concerned, and that is the West Park Hospital Foundation. Received a $500 million expansion project with the province of Ontario, probably the largest of any hospital ever. And we're going to be affiliated with them here at the association in them putting on what's called the Festival of Football, which is a one-day event on August the 18th, which will be held at Eglinton Flats. And it's going to be a massive day as far as soccer is concerned at the grassroots level. There will be competitions in every category, and we're proud to be part of that for a cause. For anybody who's ever had any relative or a friend go through the West Park Hospital Foundation, they would know what a fantastic job they do. So we're proud to be part of that. It looks like we're going to be running a goalie camp in connection with the TSA. A good friend of mine, Joe Corrigan, former English world national goalkeeper, 18 years with Man City, will be coming over and doing something with us in July. So a lot of things going on. It's busy. And I thank you and Touchline for having the chance to come out and see us, and hopefully that you'll know a little bit more about the TSA in time.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, you can keep my word that when you do this West Park event, let me know about it. And if we're in town, I'll guarantee you we'll come and cover out some of the great volunteers, the clubs and people that are doing this, because that's what it's all about. But I can't thank enough you, Dave Brown, and you, William, because you guys put so much blood, sweat, and tears and energy and time away from your life to give back to the kids. And too many times parents don't appreciate that. People like yourself, William, yourself, Dave, and yourself as well, Wayne. This is what it's all about. And we thank you for joining us here on a special Touchline here at the TSA offices here in Toronto. Thanks once again for joining us here on Touchline.